Welcome everybody to today's special Zoom webinar with Sealaska, First Alaskans Institute, and Tlingit and Haida. I'd like to introduce Sealaska Chair Joe Nelson.
Thank you, Dixie. Good afternoon, everyone. See, we got our panelists populating the tiles here. So when you're here, go ahead and feel free to turn your video on for the panelists. The flow for the day, we've got an hour here together in virtual world. And I'm excited to kind of help host and facilitate the conversation a little. You know, these oceans are powerful. They connect us in many ways. They're also powerful in the sense of Mother Nature, you know, in the sense that we all know folks who have not come back from the ocean. So I want to just open my comments there as someone who grew up on the water, in the water, on the water and fishing, and just acknowledging all the way of life we have, that the nature there. Because Kaaxúxgu was my upbringing around the water. That was my very first teachings and learnings, was very much to be very aware of the Kaaxúxgu. So I just putting that out there in the world, acknowledging the Kaaxúxgu and the power of the water as we have this conversation. My Kaalk'in name is Kaaxúxgu. I'm from Yakutat. Streaming to you from my man cave in Aquant, though, in Juneau, and looking forward to getting out of our caves as we all get vaccinated and re-enter safely. So looking forward to connecting in person over the next few months as we all get vaccinated. We're going to have 5 panelists today, and they're going to all introduce themselves, and then we'll have a little conversation and I think some room for some Q&A through the chat, and hopefully we'll have time for that. But before we really dive in with the panelists, I want to go ahead and turn the floor over to our CEO, Anthony Mallott, to go ahead and offer some opening comments. Sealaska's been on an incredible journey for 50 years. We're coming up on our 50-year anniversary. But in particular, these last few years, we've really restructured the company, and we've built a book of businesses on the ocean health theme. So this theme for topic today, really, it fits into everything we're doing, and we're also excited about the partnerships that are going to help us continue doing our good work. So I want to thank Kaalk'in, Haida, and First Alaskans and the other participants here for joining us today. But go ahead, Anthony, the floor is yours.
Cheese, Joe. My Tlingit name is Gíidaak. As Joe said, I'm President and CEO of Sealaska, originally from Yakutat. I want to thank President Peterson and Sarah for inviting me to the dips that they have been doing. I haven't joined yet, but I will. I promise you that. It's something that I've thought about for quite a while. And when I knew about this session, I started worrying on just a time that I have great gratitude for. Walter Soboleff was willing to come talk to Sealaska employees about wellness. And when we think about wellness, I don't think there's anybody that could give better advice than such a spiritual individual who was a culture bearer, who also happened to live to over 100 years old. And I picked him up for this session, and we were driving in from his house into the Sealaska Plaza building, and he was just looking at the channel, and it was one of those days that there was ice forming in the channels. And he got to Sealaska, and he started into kind of all the ancestral knowledge of wellness you would expect from him, the importance of it, how focused our ancestors were on building our strength, not just strength of body, but strength of spirit, which he knew so well, and strength of mind. And he, in the middle of his speech, he talked about what we knew, the fact that our ancestors would sit in the water, and he said it in a way that kind of only he could. He said, even when the water was smoking, our nephews and nieces would sit in the water. And he was talking about those cold days where there's just that smoke from the water because it's possibly below zero, negative weather. And that moment really, he knew it. He knew it culturally, kind of what that power brought. He didn't dive into what it brings, and you'll hear it from the panelists, it's more just strength of body that's built when you're in that water. And I look forward to kind of how they each have their own sense of what else comes to them when they are in our waters. But I just want to say, one more thing that he said, and it was a question of one of our employees specifically. How do you believe you've lived so long? And he said, I eat native foods every day. And that was his one key to his own individual longevity and his own wellness. But I think we can look to such spiritually guided leaders with that sort of knowledge to speak to us about wellness and give us our own motivation to dive in the water when it makes sense for us. So Gíidaak to the panelists for being with us and being able to express what this means to you.
Thank you, Anthony. So as I mentioned, 5 panelists, and the flow, we'll do brief introductions and then just get back and forth and some conversation, and hopefully there'll be some room for questions to come from the audience as well. And we'll just dive in, and if you're comfortable with the flow, it's just going to go around the tiles the way it's easiest for me to manage, and it's Wáahlaal, Gíidaak, and Shak'shaani, Éesh to kick it off here, if you don't mind.
Hadala is, Atlant is, Ashli Gudanai Lagang. Good people, it's an honor to be with you today. Frances Demert Peel, Dinanu Ijin. Frances Demert Peel was my grandmother. Sandra Demert Di Au Ijin. Sandra Demert is my mother. Wáahlaal Gíidaak Hunudi Ki Ang. Barbara Blake Ki Atsatai Hunudi Ki Ang. My name is Wáahlaal Gíidaak, or my English name is Barbara Blake. It's an honor to be with all of you. As I said, my family is originally from Hiktahunglai and Tlingit. I am Yak Janas, Raven from the Shark House. I'm also the granddaughter of Tlingit from Tlingit and the daughter of the Nelchina, the Sky Clan. We're the Atna people, my father's people from Chestachina. Currently calling in from Dzanta Kahini, otherwise known as Juneau. Hawa.
Shak'shaani Éesh ayach sai Tlingit Éenach Wanga needs Konrad Frank you could do a soak. Éesh has NAD Kaalk'in has Deshi Tan Angun Daxati way Éesh has Dach Zanta Kahini ye Khatyati. So I'm Shak'shaani Éesh. I also sometimes go by Konrad Frank. I grew up on my father's and my grandfather's land, the NAD and the Deshi Tan over in Angun, but I currently live here in Juneau. Sheesh.
Shaawátk'i.
Sheesh, like Éenach and Shaawátk'i you could do a sock, like Keenach Ser Dybdahl you could do a sock, Takwanedi Ayachat, Kaaxúxgu Yadi Ayachat. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sarah Dybdahl. I am here in Juneau, but originally from Shaawátk'i in Hiniquan country. I am the daughter of Mac and Linda Demert and granddaughter of Arthur and Virginia Demert, and currently serve as the Cultural Heritage and Education Director for Tlingit Haida, and just really pleased to be amongst all of you today. Cheesh.
Chalyee.
How Chalyee is my Tlingit name. I'm Kaaxúxgu from the Eagle's Nest House. grew up in the village of Kaaxúxgu on Prince of Wales Island. I serve as the president of Tlingit and Haida. Really an honor to be here today. Thank you for the invitation to talk about this activity, this practice that we're doing. I guess practice, I heard wasn't the best way to refer to it, but it's been a real positive, life-changing event for me. And I just want to thank my sisters, Wáahlaal, Gíidaak, and Shaawátk'i. I can't see your name, Sarah, so I can get it wrong. And Log and I, who all really inspired me to begin this journey. So just extreme gratitude for them for holding me up.
Kaaxúxgu, President Peterson. And last, but definitely not least, Kaalk'in. I don't know if I said your name right, Mona. You got to teach us your name.
Kaaxúxgu. Thank you. My name is Mona Van. I am in Kaaxúxgu, my grandparents' house. Most people would know my mother, who was Chalyee Van. My father was Gabriel Van. I come from four different heritages: Tlingit, Haida, Yupik, and Inupiaq. Tlingit Haida on my mother's side, of course. Yupik and Inupiaq on my father's side. They're his family is up from the Marshall area in the Northwest. But I was born and raised down here in Southeast Alaska and lived in my grandparents' house, who were Tommy and Mona Jackson. I am currently the higher education coordinator for the organized village of Kaaxúxgu. And I'm just really honored to be here and participating. And I too would like to thank my sister, Laganai. She was one of her and my other sister Dawn were the ones that actually got me into this, and it's made an impact, and it's made me reevaluate kind of everything through to today. So I'm happy to be here and to be able to talk to other people about it.
Appreciate that, Mona. Made me think of AFN. You're literally AFN, all in one. So, well, the thought here is the first part of the conversation is really diving a little deeper about kind of why you and your personal journey, but we also want to transition a little bit before the end of this into the how and the more the details, knowing that there is a movement afoot around the world where folks are reconnecting in many different ways and realizing the power of our indigenous knowledge and our ways. The pandemic has really forced us to do some things differently, and I think that's contributed to the wellness conversations and the realization that we've known what we've been doing for a long time. We just need to get back to it. And my quick opening, and then if you're comfortable, you can butt in anywhere, but I would just kind of work the same way around the tiles with opening comments around, what brought you to it and why it speaks to you. And as you're thinking on that, I'll just little quick soundbite for me in the sense of the why or how or what. For me, it's, I grew up on all the rivers up and down the coast of Yakutat, and we would stay out there, for weeks on end, sometimes up to a month. And, when you're literally out like that for so long, you have to get in the water. It's just a function of you have to get in the water. But I also, it was raised in a way where we were encouraged to get in the water. But like I said, with a very conscious understanding of the Kaaxúxgu and knowing that you couldn't go out too deep and you shouldn't go out too deep unless you knew what you were doing. But, so it's always been part of me. I chose my college by how close it was to the beach, to the Pacific Ocean. That's how I literally chose where to go to school. And just, you know, it's always been a thing. I could never live too far from the water. I'm not a great swimmer. I don't claim to be a fish. I'm actually a brown bear, takeaway D. But, you know, the brown bears are also pretty close to the ocean for good reason as well. So we like fish. So salmon, we're salmon people. And the in recent years, I've, you know, learned a little more about the science of it, the science behind the things our ancestors already knew. The Western science, I would say, I guess, about it, what we've always known, the indigenous science works. So it's something that I've always done just quietly and privately with family, but there was an opportunity where I was given the sort of the prod to push to go ahead and share a little bit and host this. And I want to thank all of you for being leaders in that respect, because we're all works in progress. That's sort of the point. We're all looking to strengthen ourselves so we can strengthen our communities, and you're all community leaders here. So we can have a volunteer, and if not, we can start with Wáahlaal Gíidaak again.
Thank you. Kaaxúxgu. Just want to uplift everybody's voices in this space and just say a big howa for that. My journey started a very, very long time ago, and really, as we all tend to do, we look up to our older brothers and sisters. And for me, it was my older brother who's been enlisted in the Navy for these last 20 some odd years. He was a Navy SEAL, or is a Navy SEAL for the majority of that time. And before he was heading off to participate in BUDS, which is the training they do for the Navy SEALs, over 20 years ago now, he wanted to strengthen himself. And being the diligent little sister, I had to do it with him and had to follow in his footsteps and just tiptoe around him. And so January 1st, 1998, we both, or I engaged in my very first dip. And it was a reconnection to who I was. It was a matter of, there's a lot of intimidation that comes with regaining who we are. There's a lot of shame that comes with that, and a lot of fearfulness of not being enough and not practicing enough or not upholding enough. And in that instance, knowing that our ancestors were there with us, and knowing that there's an opportunity to connect and strengthen in a way that allowed me to be fearless in that moment, to dip and to know that the strength of our ancestors was there with me, that I didn't have to worry about the judgment of speaking wrong or singing wrong or dancing wrong or performing or drawing wrong or doing artwork wrong or harvesting wrong. Dipping is the one connection I knew I could make to our ancestors and to our way of being. That was just me. And it was my connection to our ancestors and a rebuilding of that. And those building blocks definitely just continued to strengthen and continued to build higher and higher from that moment on. Yes, for me, it was a way of reconnecting and kind of that starting place of that reconnection and building that importance in my life.
Shak'shaani.
Gnilchish, Kaaxúxgu, Gnilchish, Takatjuhan, Gnilchishi, Yukatangi, Ka'ai, Tandatani. I just want to, thank everyone beforehand for the opportunity to be able to share this space with such amazing people, and to just acknowledge how amazing everyone is and how happy I am to be here. So I had started actually with Lyle and Colleen, Éesh, and it was a while ago when I was going to college, and they took me in and they provided, you know, a lot of support and everything that I needed to be able to get through college, through all the 8 years that I've had to go. And so I felt really comfortable with them. So there was a lot of like support that was already there. And, you know, they took care of me, they fed me, they made sure that I had, you know, someone who was going to listen to me to be able to support, you know, my papers. And so when they asked if I wanted to go for a dip, I was like, okay, I can do it. And so I had went to go for a dip with them and some of our dance group members. And it was really difficult. It was really challenging, and I didn't know exactly what I was doing at the time. I've always just grown up, you know, with the saltwater being something that we've always looked to growing up at home. You know, if you got hurt, but if you got like, you know, sprained ankle, if you got sprained fingers, sprained hands, you always went to the ocean. And so it made sense that we would go to the ocean when we were struggling or when we had challenges to face. So I went and I did my dip, and I was doing it for a while with my dance group, with the guidance of Wáahlaal and Kaalk'in. And, you know, I just ended up not going for a little bit. And it was actually not it was reintroduced into my life about last year, maybe in April or May. You know, I'm someone who suffers from anxiety. And so in my mind, everything, I'm a big people pleaser. And so in my mind, you know, all sorts of different situations tend to play out. I think the worst of things, it keeps me awake. I try to be prepared for everything. I want to make sure that everyone's happy. And you throw a pandemic in there and everything comes kind of crashing down. And so you have all these different things just weighing me down. Just, you know, once it was first announced in Juneau, I just collapsed and all I could think about was my family. And I was so scared and I was so nervous and I didn't know what to do. All these things adding to my anxiety, and the way that I process and the way that I connect with people was all of a sudden gone. I was in the apartment all alone, and one of the people that I turn to is my sister Ayu. And I love that woman so much, and she's been such good guidance for me. And I shared with her everything that I was going through at that time. I was going through a breakup, you know, I was worried about her, I was worried about everyone in my life. And she reminded me that we had the ocean right there. And she's like, you know, what about a dip? And so I was like, yeah. And she told me the stories of when she would go for a dip, when she came down, when she'd come to visit. And so it was from then on, I started, you know, going, and I started inviting, you know, friends of mine. My roommate would go with me. We'd organize men's and women's dips so that everyone felt comfortable, whether you identified as a man and you felt more comfortable going with us, or you identified as a woman, or you were non-binary and you wanted to go with whomever. And so I was just learning along the way. And so it was just a really good experience to kind of reset and ask for the strength. And as Wáahlaal Gíidaak had mentioned, connect with our ancestors to ask for the strength to get through that week. And so being able to connect that way was filling that support or that need that I was longing for when I was in this pandemic. And so for me, you know, it was being isolated where I found my way back to the ocean.
Sheesh. On Shaawátk'i, before we go to you, I'm going to just popcorn a handful of questions that came through. You don't have to respond to any or all of them right now, but just feel free as you walk through these your comments here, because I just want to acknowledge the audience, because I know we're getting a number of questions, and if you don't mind, and we can just weave it into the flow, but don't feel too much pressure on everyone. one's about the safety. What do you think? Is there a sense that the practice encouraged safety by going out deeper, learning how to just navigate and go farther, deeper in the water? And then there's one about hypothermia. How do you manage their fear about hypothermia? And then a couple of comments about moving water versus lakes, and fresh water versus salt water, and then the tides. So feel free, I'm just floating some concepts out there that you might, on your follow-ups here, to weave in some responses to questions that are coming through. But go ahead, on Shaawátk'i.
I'm curious to see what the other panelists have to say about those questions. Those good questions are being presented. I would say that my journey has been similar to Mona with Lagunai and my sister Wáahlaal back, 2015 or 2016 is kind of when it started for us, and have gone periodically when we really felt the need, and this year have been really intentional about going weekly with my brother and some other close friends. And I think why it was important to me is over finding a way to build my own strength, but also the strength of my family and those that are around me. And that the other coping mechanisms and the other things that I was doing, running, getting on that treadmill, doing those other things, it wasn't fulfilling that wellness part that I needed, that there was a piece missing in everything that I was doing and trying to heal myself and find ways to take care of myself as life experiences happen, and you're faced with the stresses and the struggles and traumas that often face us. And so that was really what drew me to that, and going, and then finding it, doing it more consistently, of what it has done for me. And it made me think about, our clan Taquanadi has the story of the strong man and Gashwait and Duktooth, and how he went about this. And in that story, they speak about him, or it's told about how he went alone, and he went at night, and he did it as a way to build his strength. And that the other, the uncle and the others would go during the day, and for reasons he wasn't allowed to, and so he did it alone. And it's about that building, I think, that internal awareness, and then also the collective whole of the strength of our communities, and that perseverance. And so for me, that's what it's been in this journey.
For me, and I was just reading Rhonda Butler's question, and it really hits 100% bullseye for me. That's why I'm doing this, is the pandemic. I think sometimes as leaders, we try to hold ourselves above emotion and feelings and all those things, but that's fictional, right? Because we're human. One of the things I've found through life is we carry so much trauma as being who we are, historical trauma from our own lives, whatever. But when you're dealing with that trauma, addiction, Shak'shaani, Éesh talked about anxiety and stuff, and I suffer from anxiety, and so the pandemic was really hitting me hard, and I found right around between Thanksgiving and Christmas time really hard, not being able to go home, be home with my family. I found myself just feeling like I was drowning in those emotions and probably even depression. And it was through talking to my sisters that I thought, you know, our culture is our cure. When I've struggled with issues in my past, like addiction, it was our culture that's brought me out of it. And so it made sense to me, and I wanted to do something with intent and purpose and building that strong mindset back and kind of building up that armor against depression and all those anxieties from the pandemic. And so it was immediately powerful and actually shocked me. Like I didn't realize how spiritual it would become for me. So powerful. And, you know, I really talk about intent and being mindful when I do it. I carry in the burdens and so that they can be washed away. You know, sometimes we deal with, I think of Cyril George, who would talk about how they shot arrows at those that were doing the leaders. And that can be really hard and it can tear you down. But when you take those negative things, those people, actions, trauma, and let it just wash away, it became so powerful to me and so uplifting. And you just feel so reinvigorated. And I tell you, when you walk into the water, and the water is warmer than the air because it's 8 degrees out, it kind of shocks your system and helps reset you and your mind. And so I've done all those things and been so thankful. And even recently, it may sound silly to some, but I lost my dog. I had her for 12 years from she was 5 weeks old when I got her, and she was my faithful companion. And you know, I carried that loss into the water, and I didn't go in feeling super emotional, but the emotions just washed out, and I came out and I was just crying, you know, and that's that powerful feeling. But it's also when you're with your, you know, folks that are there to hold you up and you're there to hold them up, that feeling and that trust that you can be vulnerable and just be in that moment is really powerful. Sheesh. Hello.
Jeez. Sorry about your dog there. Mona.
Can I just listen to some more? No, I'm kidding. I forgot to mention, yes, I am Raven Kachari from Kijuan, born and raised. I mentioned in my introduction that doing dips kind of start bringing things back to my memories as I was growing up. And I here in Cape, I live on a house that's right above the beach. So every time I went to bed, I heard the waves crashing, you know, the tides in and out. We see it, we smell it, we feel it. You can tell when the tides change, the wind blows. And growing up, we spent a lot of time in the water, especially in the summers. It wasn't, you know, encouraged in the winter exactly. But like you said, especially you remember the days when the water was smoking. It was always just so fascinating. And you wondered what was going on. And then you remember stories about your uncles who were going out, you know, clam digging in the middle of winter. And they talked to their dad about having their hands freezing. And he's telling them, put it in the water, put your hands in the water. And it worked. It warmed up their hands to the point, you know, where they could dry it off and feel warmer after that. But yeah, doing the dips. I first really started intentionally about 3 to 4 years ago after Dawn started, and she kept telling, you know, about doing them, about it, and I was inviting. She was, you know, never pressure, never you should do this, you should. No, it was all like, I'm going, would you like to? You're always welcome. So I started with her, and it took me back to, well, first it took my breath away, but then you recover, and it starts bringing to mind all kinds of feelings and sensations that it takes you back to when you first felt them. At least it did for me. And it took me directly to my childhood, swimming in the water. And then when I remembered that, I remembered how good I felt after swimming around in the water. Keep in mind, this was mainly during the summer times, but it still made you feel really good. So when we started going intentionally, it didn't matter if it was, in the summer or like here. This was actually just last Friday, this video, when it was snowing and when it was 28 degrees. But in the water, it was all right. But like I said earlier, it just made me feel better. Physically, emotionally, mentally better. I don't, there's no point where anything in particular clicked for me. It's just an overall sense of better well-being for me. And having a better me for myself makes it a better me for everyone else, if that makes any sense. It just makes me a better person to be able to listen to people, to help people, to communicate, just to be an overall better person in society. But like I said, every time I dip, it brings back something else. And back in the 1990s, I was actually a community health aide here in Kaaxúxgu. And I believe it was Konrad that mentioned, every time, you have sports injuries, any type of activity, any type of walking, any type of running, people can injure themselves, get muscle strains, even broken bones. And when I was a health aide, the elders that were around my grandfather and my aunts and uncles, they were like, get a bucket of water from the dock and soak your foot, soak your wrist, soak your hand in the water. And one of the tips, one of the things, being a health aide, one of the treatments was, cold packs. So, and then I remember through the years also, after I left being a health aide, you see in the news that, there are different technologies and advancements and treatments that are being talked about. And one of them is cold therapy for spinal injuries and everything. And, just all kinds of injuries. One of the first answers in treatments are, cold. So an all around cold enveloping sensation would be the water, the ocean. And everything started making so much sense, and it's not until I'm 50 now, and I'm still just now realizing things, things that we've gone through, places we've been, things we've done. I too can never live far from the ocean. When I went in to visited other lands that are landlocked, Montana and everything like that, I was missing something. Something was missing, and I was always looking around, and then I saw a lake. And it's like something inside of me calmed down. But I did have to go and put my hand in the water. And that was very different, but it was very, very, very calming. And one of the things I wanted to mention, I saw one of the questions and you said about the safety issue. One of my uncles, I'm sure people know, Mike Jackson, had a phrase out there called, and part of his artwork was Ocean Nation. And, you know, we are an ocean nation. And one of the first things that we teach all of our young people, because I'm also the director for our annual culture camp. And one of the things that we stress during our culture camp, because it's near the water, is safety, water safety. We have cold water safety. You know, we identify the hazards. What do you do when you find yourself in cold water for extensive in periods of time? How to conserve your heat, your body heat. You know, where identify where you lose the most heat, which would be your head and different parts of your body. How you can conserve as much as you can. What to do once you finally get out of the cold water. Being in a dip, if you notice, you know, there are times when you stay in there longer than others. For the longest time, I just walked in and out. And that was fine. And you get cold. There's no way, you know, you can't deny that. You get cold. But it's not for the amount of time that you can get, you know, hypothermia. And you go prepared. You go with a change of clothes if you're going to be out in the environment for an extended period of time. You go with your towels. I go with a car that has heated seats. You have something warm to drink. If you get really cold, you have water to drink. You go to a place where you can get into the water and out of the water. You know, be conscious of your surroundings. You saw in a video or two that they used a boat ramp. I love that. I love that, FYI. You go to a beach. If you have rocky beach, you be very careful because you can injure yourself walking into the water. You make sure you can get out of the water. If you find yourself having issues, you don't need to go in further than your ankles. You don't need to go in further than your knees. You don't need to go in further than you're comfortable with. I remember, you mentioned that we grew up with stories, and one of the stories was of the Kaaxúxgu. I do remember stories like that. I also remember the creation stories, you know, the creation of the killer whale, the Keet, how the majority of our stories are in or around water. So it's a life. It's a life, and then being able to do the dips and being more conscious of the whole process for me, it's where I needed to be right now. And I'm happy. I'm so happy that so many other people are doing it. It just makes so much more sense to me. And I think I jabbered long enough for now. Thank you. Kaaxúxgu.
We were all happily just leaning in to listen to you for all this. That was wonderful, Mona. We're yeah, you took us on a journey, and you know, this whole thing is about it's some folks learn about mindfulness, and then they try to teach mindfulness, but this just takes it to a whole nother level when these things come, when they converge, the mindfulness and the physical aspect of all the things, that the good healing powers. But I do want to just sort of shift to sort of freestyle for you folks, things that you're feeling compelled to share right now. You're able to see some of the questions that come in. There's some questions I think I mentioned before about fresh water versus cold water, or the tide coming in and out, and then also the 4 directions, if there's specifics, and then also just more words of advice and encouragement for others. One that I thought of was, just you be aware of what you're standing on, so and you got at that, Mona. So for me, it's usually half tide. That's usually a safe spot, is that half tide spot, because real low tide, it's usually kind of sketchy, low tide down there, and then at real high tide, it's unless it's slack tide, it's usually a bunch of rocks up there. So for me, half tide, and have something to protect your feet a little bit if you need. But yeah, feel free to just popcorn in here who's feeling and inspired to respond to some of the conversation here.
I think that safety was a big one, and Mona really hit on that. Log was one who really gave me some good advice. Being a big guy, I was a little nervous. I didn't want to fall on the beach, and so that's why we chose the boat ramp, because it's a lot easier. You don't have to worry about rocks and things like that. And I think you need to think about that and be safe in what you're doing. It's no different than going out and gathering or hunting or fishing. That's safety is always what we were taught. And just like everything else, there can be dangers to this. And, so I thought about that. I also wanted to comment, if I could, about the health benefits. I saw somebody post on here their comment about medications, and I have an autoimmune disease that's actually pretty severe. I have to get treatments for, and for the first time, I'm actually can be in a lot of pain, and a lot of people don't know this, but I started like twitching, because of that. And so I had to tell people in my life what was going on, which I didn't want to at the time, but it was unavoidable. And I started doing the cold water dipping, and I didn't even realize it at first, but I quit twitching, and then I quit hurting, and I still hurt a little bit, but it was getting severe in my joints. And I went to my doctor, and my numbers came back, and he's like, "What are you doing? Your numbers are going down, and it's not just the medication." And I told him, and he goes, "Oh, that makes sense, because cold therapy is one of the recommendations." And they never even had told me that. I didn't know that. And so just inadvertently, I'm curing myself like I didn't know it. And so that was like a huge, powerful thing for me. And my brother Jimmy lives with me, and he pointed that out too. He goes, you're not twitching anymore. And I was really twitching a lot, and I was getting self-conscious about it. And so that was a really powerful thing for me, like moved me to tears, that here I'm curing myself, and I had no idea, like it's just such that benefit. And I think, our ancestors knew, like they always had answers for everything. They had such lived experience that they had, I think, were such innovators and knew. And so, and I heard that when I was a kid too. "Oh, you hurt yourself, go into the water," and of course my nickname, my parents called me Baby Seal because I was always in the water. So it sort of made sense too. But yeah, I think you can get off medications, and when you start researching that cold therapy and cold water therapy, it's good for your circulation, it's good for your heart. People keep asking me, "Well, what if you have like a heart attack or something?" And I'm like looking at them like, no, it's good for you. It's good for your heart, and it's really good for your mind.
It just going off of what Éesh shared is just how incredibly intelligent our ancestors were. I mean, you go to Fred Meyer's and they have a whole aisle of Epsom salt, and and people buy pounds of Epsom salt, and we have it right out here in front of us. And if you start researching like the health benefits of these dips, it alleviates like stress, the hormones and things in your body around stress. It also will enact like your body to start building up your white blood cells, you know, and you think about like when our warriors were preparing and doing that really traditional, like they were building up their resiliency, knowing that they were likely going to be injured, you know, protecting our communities and our families. And so not only was there that mental strength training, and then just the self-discipline of being able to stay in a place where it's hard and it's harsh and you can feel it, but there were these internal benefits that were happening, and just how incredibly intelligent our people were, and to turn back into it to take care of ourselves now. And I just appreciate you know, those that are working to normalize this practice, and that it's okay to go to the water and maybe not have all the answers, you know, and because there is that fear and intimidation, you know, a lot of questions about how do you do it right. And I guess my own philosophy is that if you're going with a good intention and you're going to the water and it's about your healing, that there is no wrong way, you know, and to just go and to try it and experience it yourself, because it's different for all of us. It's different each time you do it. There's days that, you know, you'll walk out and you'll just feel like I'm gonna run home. And then there's days that you're just exhausted, and it's like this neutralizing effect. It neutralizes you in ways. And so I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Ganeshish, I'm really appreciating just listening to everyone. So what I heard from Mona is that I have to go buy a car with heated seats now. But to add on to what Shaawátk'i had shared is that, you know, we're all learning how to do this. We're all kind of coming back to our ways of living, and we each come from different places. And I've listened to a few different people who have shared, and I've been so grateful, who have shared how they do dips. And as Shaawátk'i had mentioned, there's no wrong way to do it. And the intention when I go into the water is that I'm going in asking for the strength to be able to face my challenges, or to be able to face what's coming up. And sometimes when I first started, one of the scariest things for me was, you know, being, I guess, judged, for the lack of a better word, because where I was going was over on Kaaxúxgu territory, which is heavily walked by a bunch of people who may not know what I'm doing. And so there's this like fear of being looked at while I'm going out there. And one of the things that had happened too while doing this dips is like, I just have to do it. I'm doing this for myself. I'm doing this for the strength. I'm going out there and asking for strength to be able to take care of myself, to be able to, so I can go take care of others. And when I started doing that, it became easier and easier for me to go out there and just do this, and to know the benefits that are coming from it, just as everyone has shared here. And others began joining me. And as Chalyee had shared too, is that you have a bunch of other people who are able to uplift you. And if you're not comfortable going at it alone, there's so many people who are doing it now. It's beautiful. I went out there with my brother Brandon, who also organizes dips. And so he goes out there, and my brother Kai, who goes out now too, and they'll just reach out. They're like, hey, do you want to go for a dip? And I'm like, yeah, let's go, let's do it. And so we'll look at the tide book, and then we'll go out, and there's, you know, Jamie Ann goes out for dips, and, you know, Jennifer Quinto goes out for dips. There's so many people that you can reach out to now, where you can be like, you know, I really want to do this, and I want to do this with someone. And there's so many people who will uplift you while doing this beautiful way of life.
I wanted to build on Shak'shaani Éesh a little bit and just, you know, our ocean has always been our provider. And we know that as Southeast Native people, it's always been there for 10,000 years. We've had an interdependent relationship with our oceans, and it provides exactly what we need when we need it. And the same goes for when we're dipping. There's each time, as Shaawátk'i said, is different. For me, I have a lot of fire in me that for anyone who knows me, it's hard for me to temper that sometimes, and demonstrate the love and care that I know is necessary. But I'm such a fierce defender that I oftentimes get too fired up. And so for a lot of times, stepping into the ocean for me helps kind of cool me off a little bit and ease some of the fire that's within me so that I can lead better with love. Because as we all know, that you do a lot better attracting bees with honey than you do with vinegar. And I know that that's how society works. And in order to be a good caretaker and a good contributor to our people, I have to find a better path than leading with just fierceness and leading with just fire. And so that's been kind of a solid path for me. I did want to uplift one piece of advice that I see here in the Facebook comments from our sister Lagunai, is that you don't have to start by going all the way in. You start wherever you're comfortable. There's no wrong way to do this. This connection to our ancestors reaches back 10,000 years, and it belongs to each and every single one of us. It doesn't belong to just the faces here on this Zoom. It doesn't just belong to the people who are saying that they dip. It belongs to all of us. And there's no wrong way to start this process and this building, this reconnection. You know, if you just want to go in up to your ankles, as she said in the chat there, you know, then just go into your ankles. That's an awesome way to start, and just build up however you need to take that strength and to give back, because it's all a matter of our own personal healing and our own rebuilding that connection.
Shawa, we're running up against our allotted time, and I know we can tell a bunch of stories, so we're gonna do a little speed round of closing comments and have Anthony pop in as well for just because I know we're just getting started, it feels like. So Mona and President Peterson look like you wanted to say a couple of quick things. Yeah, go for it, Mona, ladies first.
I just wanted to mention that when I dip around here, when we dip around here in Cake, we can tell a difference between freshwater and the ocean on the north side of our island. It's you know, and the sound, but we have a recreational area further to the south of us. It's called Seal Point, and it comes a creek comes out there, and it's, you know, all the fresh runoff water, and it is so much colder than any other beach area that we go to. So you can feel the difference. I will say that the water seems so much clearer lately, and it's so much just feels so much more alive. But basically, thank you for the opportunity to be here and share, and to hear other people on their journeys enjoying this this activity, this revisit of our cultural roots. I mean, it's sitting here listening to other people talk about their experiences. It's bringing back stories of being actually sitting in grade school, listening to our Tlingit teacher tell us the stories, and I've been going through how many of them included water, and the majority of the Tlingit stories always had some sort of moral that, you know, you take away, we each take away. So I've been revisiting all those. I'm not going to share it right now. It'll take it extra super long, but I'm really, really, really thankful to be to have been asked to participate in this. So thank you.
We're going to end up doing another one in the evening time and light a fire and just kick back and listen to you, Mona. We're appreciating it. So, Sheesh. President Peterson.
Yeah, well, I'm just so full of gratitude today. You know, hearing Mona, I feel like I look to her like she has so much more experience in this because, you know, we're all at different levels, and I'm a baby in this. So people who ask me like I'm an expert, there's no wrong. You know, I think like Log and I, our sister said, just do it. You know, nothing will be wrong. You know, you want to go to your ankles, you want to dip, it's all okay. You know, and I seen some questions about like what kind of clothing to wear. You know, I just wear swim trunks and a t-shirt, but one thing I do is I bought pretty decent aqua socks just so I didn't hurt my feet. You know, nothing, if you've been a kid in Southeast, you know what a barnacle can do to your foot. So you want to be careful there. And then I just had to share my very first experience was with my sister Barb here. And we went and there were people, and I was kind of nervous because there were people out at the wreck site, and but we, you know, feel the fear and do it anyways. And we started walking in, and all these people were up at their fires cheering for us. And we just kind of looked at each other and giggled a bit. But you know, you're gonna run into people. I've heard stories like people thinking somebody was committing suicide because they saw them walking into the water, things like that. You know, and people are going to come at you with some questions, and you know, this is our opportunity to educate our friends and neighbors too. And just sometimes their questions might not feel very sensitive, but you know, they just don't understand. They don't know. And lastly, I just want to thank Joe, all of you, Sealaska, for doing this. You know, this isn't about putting a spotlight on any one of us. And, you know, that sounds funny because we're putting it on social media, and that we're not doing it to bring attention to ourselves. We're doing it to bring attention to normalization of our cultural practices. And I think that's really important to emphasize is we're here telling these stories, not to brag, but to encourage, to lift others up. And I got that from our sister Log and I, who said we talked about having to normalize these our traditional ways. So thank you.
President Peterson, those are good reminders and closing comments. And as I hand it to Anthony to help wind this down, you know, at Sealaska, our mission is to strengthen our people, our culture, and our homelands. You know, and that can't be done overnight. It's a collective thing that all happens over time with everybody doing this. So this is, to me, I feel like it's a real cool moment in time to be able to do this in this way, you know, and then wonder if we would have been doing this right now if we hadn't weathered a pandemic to this far, you know. So it's just one of the silver linings there. So I'm encouraging folks as well, and really underscoring the safety, though. You know, the Kaaxúxgu is real. There's reasons why we don't take it lightly. And why most of us don't do polar bear plunges like all the Glikka when they have their annual thing where they do a polar bear plunge. It's a little different for us who are a little closer to the land here. So Anthony, welcome back, and thanks for helping host this. And you can go ahead and close out our meeting for us with your thoughts.
Sheesh, how to everybody. So many words that just sparked inspiration in myself, and for our people and for our communities. Someone said that we don't even know the extent of our ancestors' wisdom, and we at Sealaska are trying to tie into that wisdom as much as we can because we know it's relevant today. Joe talks about that so often, and we are so confident that any success we create for our businesses and for our people come from that tie to our values and our ancestors' wisdom. And they knew that, yes, you were building individual strength, but individual strength meant clan strength. Individual strength meant the clan was going to be successful, and there was always a reason to the training. I have a picture of Yakutat, and I get sentimental whenever I get to think about and talk about Yakutat. But our uncles would make their nephews run this beach up to 15, 20, 30 miles a day. And part of it was training, but if anybody's been to Yakutat, there's plastic washed up on this beach from all over the place, Korea, China, Asia. They would find logs from Asia with metal in them, nails, and they would ask their nephews to run this beach, one for strength, but to find something that brought value back to the clan as well. And when Mona said that I just come out a better person, that is so powerful to me. When you're a better person, you are better for your family. You're better for your friends. You know that feeling of accomplishment. And it's not just wellness. We had a language session, and I thank Shak'shaani Éesh for being such a student of our languages. You get the same feeling from learning our language as Mona gets from dipping. You get the same feeling from investing in yourself through education. You get the same feeling from again, supporting your family and being a better leader, as Chalyee Éesh said. So these are small steps that lead to big things, not just for us as individuals as we heal those things we need to heal, but what's really happening is we're strengthening our communities when we do this step by step. And as we continue to share this knowledge and share our languages and our thoughts around wellness and education and career success, I just have this great faith that our communities are going to become successful and attain every goal that they have for themselves. So Gíidaak, this was extremely inspiring, and your vulnerability and openness is motivating.
Sheesh, Anthony, as we hit the button to end it, I invite everybody just to take your microphone off if you want, just to say goodbye to everybody. And it's that ocean that connects us, and now it's the World Wide Web connecting us. And I want everybody to have a safe weekend. And if you don't have access to the ocean, just take a cold shower. Seriously, take a long cold shower and give thought to what this, because it is about mindfulness, and there are real beneficial properties just to the cold water. And this ocean's going to be here for us for forever. Find your way to the ocean, but if you can't right now, a cold shower will be good enough. But feel free to say thanks to everybody for coming to the noon session here. And I really want to encourage everybody to give each other those safe hugs as soon as you're vaccinated. And we look forward to doing something like this kind of in a real setting altogether, and incorporate it another level. So I've been inspired by all of you. So thank you for sharing.
Anthony, we'll see you Sunday morning.
You promised.
She
At you too.
Awa.
Hasta Kingston.
see everyone at high tide.
See you at high tide.
Well, yeah, no.